Welcome to the Work Hard People's Podcast. Hope everybody out there's having a great day. I got my very good friend Michael Pate with us. How are you doing, Michael?
I'm blessed.
That's good. That's very good. Hey, everybody, I'm telling you, I've been counting down the days for this one. I'm pretty pumped. You're going to hear a story of, well, there's a lot of ways you can put it, but of God's intervention, of overcoming great tragedy. So, um, Michael and his son, when his son was 2 years old, this was 2011. They were in their home, their mobile home on their property that they had just got. They were actually preparing, getting ready to build a house on there and everything, and they were staying in there. And it was just Michael and his son at the time, and they survived a direct hit from a EF5 tornado known as the Hackleburg tornado. So this was part of, I'm going to read a little bit here just to give you guys a little bit of history on what this is. So this occurred, this was April 27th, 2011. And it is part of what they called the 2011 super outbreak, which is the largest tornado outbreak in the United States history. Now, just to give you some details on this tornado, and there'll be plenty of pictures we're going to post throughout as we're discussing things here. But just to give you some details on this tornado was 1.25 miles wide. It hit a wind speed of 210 miles per hour. It was on the ground for just under 3 hours and is considered to be the deadliest tornado to strike the United States since 1955. Uh, we're gonna talk to Michael. He's graciously agreed to come on here and talk about his story, the events leading up to it, the recovery dealing with it, and we're just going to get into it. So, you're doing good. You ready for this, buddy?
Oh yeah,
Ready as you'll ever be, right?
right.
Yeah. So I mean, imagine. Like, I can't even imagine in my mind. I'm trying to imagine seeing something the size of that tornado coming straight for me. Because people, I'm telling you, when I post the pictures, uh, this thing was an absolute monster. You were talking 1.25 miles wide wedge tornado coming at you at 200 miles an hour, right? So let's go. What was the day like?
Well, the day was a very weird day. I had horses and a donkey and a little Shetland pony. And that early morning, the storms got bad. We had some hail and stuff. I had sent pictures to my ex-wife and my ex-mother-in-law at the time when I was married. The pictures of the hail on the ground and everything. And the horses were all up in the woods. I had woods and pasture behind my house that I owned, and they were nowhere to be seen early in the morning when all that was going. My mother-in-law had called me, asked me to come to her house if it. And I said, well, if it gets bad, I'll come to your house. But it looks like it's easing off, and it's Tyler's nap time. He was only home with me because he had strep at the time, or else he would have been at daycare. It would have only been me there. So I put him down, that mid morning for his nap, and that afternoon he was getting up. I heard him rustling around, playing in his room, so I knew it was time to get him up, change him, and everything. I walked back by the back door, looked outside, and it was a very weird, hazy color outside. But the horses were out in the middle of the field grazing. So I'm like, okay, cool. Horses, animals. To me, in my mind, they know when danger's upon them.
Hmm.
That's what I've always been taught.
Yeah.
And so I didn't think nothing of it. So I grabbed my son and got him dressed, got him changed, got him dressed, walking out in the living room, and I heard something out front that I'd never heard before. I look out front, and there's this EF5 tornado barreling down on me that I did not know because we had no internet out there as of yet because we had just moved out there in October and we were just still getting settled, and, figuring out what we were going to do and
Man,
everything.
that gives me chills. I can't even imagine. You just hear something, go look outside, and you see this thing coming.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's across the field. There, I had an easement deeded to me for the property, and so it coming across the field, across the road from my easement, the road that we lived off of on 293. We, it was across that field, and I looked at it, and I knew there was a tornado shelter at the beginning of the property. At the beginning of the easement, where the people that lived in front of us, they had a tornado shelter. I knew that existed. Um, I was in boxer shorts, t-shirt, and barefoot, and I would have had to run with my son at 450 pounds myself. The distance of a football field on gravel to get to it. And first thought was I would never make it. And then I says, well, I have time to get in my pickup truck and because and drive away and take side roads to get away from it. But I had a new truck, not newer, but it was a '05 truck. But when I bought it, I put a Viper alarm in it. And because it was so new, they didn't have the wire schematics, so they were guessing. So I've had to take it back to Best Buy 2 or 3 times for them to rewire it because sometimes it wouldn't crank. The alarm would not engage the fuel pump sometimes.
yeah.
And it was a hit or miss. You never knew it was going to happen. So I didn't want to take the risk of putting my son in the pickup truck, strapping him down, and trying to leave, and the truck not crank. Then I'm stuck. We're stuck in
How
the
close was it
vehicle
when all this was going on, Michael? How close was it to you at that time, do you think?
minutes, minutes. All this was going through my head in seconds.
Yeah.
Like it was like my brain was a supercomputer at that point in time. Looking at my options, I knew my options were limited because it was going to hit us. I was trying to figure a way to get out of the way of it,
Hmm.
but every way that I came up with in my mind in those split seconds, I realized, and I mean,
The risk
it
was
had to
too
be
great.
God.
And who knows, right? Like,
Exactly,
you can say, anybody can say Monday quarterback this thing and said, you should have done this, you should have done that. Anybody
exactly,
can do that. But now you're in a situation where you have literally seconds to make the best possible decision. I'm sure I know how that is in a situation like that where your mind slows down and, seconds turn into minutes. I mean, it's just everything is processing so fast, but you still have to think through I mean, whether you think you're panicked or not, you are. There's panic, there's fear, there's concern, especially you have your son, all these things cruising through at the exact same time trying to make the best decision. So you're going through that process. Now this thing it's going to hit you. So what was the decision that you decided to do?
Well, I knew the only room in the house that the trailer we had was the master bathroom. It had a closet. There was no windows in the bathroom. There was mirrors, but there was no windows.
Hmm.
Um, and so I grabbed him. I put him in the closet. I grabbed a king size comforter off our bed, wrapped it around him, um, and then I thought about getting in the closet with him. And at the last split second, something told me that if this trailer starts rolling, I would not have control over my weight or my body in that tight spot with my child, that I can kill my own child with my weight and not even realize
Hmm.
it. So I did the most unselfish thing and closed the door behind me and stood in the door frame on the outside of that door. And the last thing I prayed was for God not to let anything penetrate my body to hurt my son. And you know where I'm going with that because you've seen the picture
Yeah.
of
Show it. Don't you got
what
that thing around your neck? What went
yeah,
into you?
yeah,
And we'll talk. Yeah.
this right here is a piece of bank teller ballistic glass. And mind you, I lived in Hillsboro, a place called Chickenfoot, and there is no banks anywhere near me.
It just
Like
carried it from a
20
bank
miles.
destroyed earlier. Yeah.
Right. And
Crazy.
they found that the doctors dug that out, and They found it in my abdomen wall right before my organs. And they said that if I was a normal sized person, not as big as I was, not the stature that I was, that one item could have very easily killed me and it would have impaled me, pulled everything out with it when it went through me, would have went through that paper thin door and
Oh
could have
yeah.
killed my son. Because it would have been at the height where my son was standing at the door because my son was scared. He was banging on the door.
Yeah.
So that
So the
one item,
tornado hits. What the tornado hits, man. So it's hitting. What is going
yeah.
through your mind at that point?
Well, the trailer rolled over on its back and I was basically laying on the door. And then the wind come along and ripped the whole front of the trailer off. And that's honestly, I don't know if it's I blacked out because of oxygen, lack of oxygen. But I woke up with people hollering for father. Um, People did not know my name. Did not they knew I was a truck driver, and they knew when I was home, my pickup truck was home. That's the only reason why they knew to look for me because they found my son first because they thought it was a whimpering dog. Um,
And what was it?
and
Did that when it hit, it laid you over. The wind hit. Obviously, I mean, blacking out. A million things could make you black out, right? Just the sheer
right,
fear and panic of what's going on could make you black out. But you had told me that the tornado literally. I mean, you guys were what, like 600 feet, a couple hundred yards away from the actual dwelling.
200, yeah, we're 250 yards out in the middle of a cow pasture. Is where they found us.
Yeah, so what is that? Six? That's 750 feet. I mean, to put that in
Yeah,
perspective, um, that you literally picked up and set down 750 feet away.
yeah. With
Crazy.
with no debris, no major debris around us. We had
Yeah.
papers and stuff like that, but there was no um,
How close were the
debris.
two of you on the ground? How far was he from you on the ground when it was
60 feet, 60
okay?
feet. I was further away,
Hmm. Man, it gives me
and
chills just thinking about it. I can't even imagine what that
I
must have been like.
impacted the ground with such force that it caused a solid black bruise from the back of my knees to the back of my shoulders. It
Yeah.
was one solid black
Mm,
bruise.
dang it. Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. So now you're out in this field, and I don't know about you, but I've been in a couple situations, and like the first thing I'm doing is assessing, right? I'm like, okay, I'm breathing, I'm this, I'm that, whatever, you know. What were you as you're coming to? What are you thinking?
Well, when I heard people calling for father, I realized I was alive. Like I come to, I put my hand up and kind of uttered, over here or
Yeah.
something. Um, and they came rushing over to me. It was actually the neighbors that were lived in front of me that came looking for me because they found my son first because they
Hmm.
thought it was one of the dogs, whimpering dogs that they had. And so I didn't even care about my condition. My
Hmm.
immediate thought was, "Did you find my son?"
Yeah.
And they said yes. I says, "Is he alive?" And they said yes. I said, "Is he injured?" And they said yes. I said, "How bad?" And they would not answer.
Yeah.
And they says, "All right, we're gonna go. We're gonna go find help." I says, "Look, get my son to the hospital. You know where I'm at. You know, you already told me that I'm pretty banged up. I can't get up, and the two of us can't pick you up. So leave me here. You know where I'm at. Get my son to the hospital, please." And they said they can't. It's hailing. There's more storms coming. We cannot leave you out here in the elements and the condition you're in because you won't survive.
Yeah.
And so then some other people had pulled up on the street and they turned around to walk away and they heard a noise behind them. And I did not know this because I was in and out of consciousness. This is
Yeah.
what was told to me at the hospital by people that rescued me. They said they don't know how in the world I did it, but somehow, with as much damage to my leg, with the 18 by 20 centimeter hole torn through my leg, lacerations all over my body, I somehow got up to my feet and took like 3 steps and basically fell back down. And they said they had never seen just pure determination to save someone's child than what
Hmm.
you were exhibiting. Just the
Yeah.
sheer, disregard of your own health to get your son to the hospital. And so a guy named Buddy showed up. He was a volunteer fireman for the area. Although the towers were gone, so he had no radio contact, he knew protocol. So they found a piece of plywood. They rolled me over onto the piece of plywood, picked me up, and slid me in the back of a pickup truck. They grabbed my son. They started heading towards the hospital. In heading to the hospital, they had to go around a tree that was across the road and go into the ditch. Well, his 2-wheel drive pickup truck got stuck on the way to the hospital with me and my son. Well, Buddy grabbed my son, um, and the injury to my son was a severe injury. It was a brain injury. It was a compressed skull fracture with brain protrusion, which means his brain was exposed.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
we'll get
so
to that. Let's
right,
we're gonna
so,
dive into your son, just
right,
for trying to keep some organization here.
right.
Let's
Gotcha.
keep telling that
So
story.
he covered his head, hit the hole in his head, and ran to where he knew the ambulance was supposed to be staged. He got there. Um, the ambulance crew had gone with another ambulance crew to help a multi-victim area, but there was an ambulance and a sheriff sitting. So they got in the ambulance. Sheriff drove the ambulance to the hospital with my son and this guy in it. When they unloaded him at the hospital, they immediately entered him as Baby Doe because nobody knew his name.
Yeah.
Put him on another ambulance, drove him to UAB in Birmingham. Fire department was there unloading people. They told them about me. The big fire truck came and got me. They brought me to the Molten Hospital, which they had suffered damage and no power. So they put
Yeah.
me on an ambulance and they sent me to Decatur General. And but I mean
So
that's pretty much what
now you're
happened.
separated, obviously, which is going to create more
Yep.
panic because you don't know what's going on with your son. Is he alive? Is he dead? Is he going to be okay? How bad is it? How bad am I? What's going on with me? All this stuff. Obviously, wife is not knowing where anything's going on yet either.
No.
So I can only imagine the craziness of that time. What as you're dealing with that, what kept you motivated and strong? What was the one thing that kept you going there?
Yeah. God only God because his promises are true and I survived a tornado, which is unsurvivable in a mobile home. The research says that a direct hit from an EF3 or stronger is an unsurvivable in a mobile home.
Yeah.
My mobile home was ordered wind zone 3, which is the strongest wind zone that they make for homes, and that's because I grew up in Homestead, Florida, with hurricanes.
Yeah, you
So I
survived.
ordered
Yeah,
it that way.
listen to this, people. Not only did he survive a direct hit from an EF5 tornado in a mobile home, but he also survived Andrews because he grew up in Miami and he
Well,
lived through
Homestead,
that.
yeah, Homestead,
Yeah, in Homestead, so he lived through that thing too. So I think the Lord has plans for you, my friend. I'm telling you that right now. You
absolutely,
better pay close attention to the direction He's sending you because He's giving you a couple chances.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
let's get in. So real quick, so your injuries, you showed us the piece of glass. You had this big chunk of bulletproof ballistic glass in your abdomen. Your leg was absolutely shredded. I got a picture of that as well, and I've seen the scar, the aftermath. I'm sure you're probably concussed, dealing with some head trauma, cuts, and other things. But was that the main injuries to you, the leg and the glass in your abdomen?
Lost the pinky toe. I had lacerations to the bone on the back of from my shoulder down almost to my elbow on my right arm. Um, the back of my left leg looked like somebody gouged it with a curtain rod, one old timey
Yeah,
90-degree bend curtain rods. I mean, I was
you were messed up.
yeah, it took them a long time. Surgery was a long time. When they finally got around to me, it was 2 hours of debris in my body. 2 hours of irrigating my body, and 2 hours of sewing it up.
Yeah.
Um, and it was, questions when you realize that you've survived and you're going to be okay. The questions you ask is, well, what did you pull out of it? And the list of stuff that they pulled out of me. I mean, everything from porcelain to gravel to green grass embedded in my skin,
Mm.
pieces of telephone pole, PVC pipe, glass, metal. I mean, anything you could
Like
think of.
shrapnel. It's like you were in a war zone.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Absolutely insane. Yeah, that's crazy, dude. Just the fact that you're living through that one, man. I'm telling you what. So then now you got, which for me would be the hardest part, is now you have this precious boy, and you probably still don't know what's going on, right?
Yeah.
How did that go with him? So they obviously you said they took him to UAB, but what was going on with him?
He had the compressed skull fracture with a brain protrusion. Basically, his brain was hanging out of his skull. Um, he had a collapsed lung. Um, and he has one little scar on his shoulder, and that's due to the fact that I wrapped him in that comforter.
Yeah,
I've asked the doctors the question, well, if I would have had a bike helmet, would he have not ever had the brain injury? And they said the amount of force that it would have taken to damage his skull the way it did, if he would have been wearing a helmet, it's a 50-50 chance that it wouldn't have broke his neck.
yeah. Just
So it's
the
kind of like,
pressure of the impact.
right. So
Yeah,
it's one of those things that, yeah, he might have never been injured and paralyzed on his right side, um, from an injury, from the brain injury, if you've been wearing a helmet. But he also might not be walking because he'd be paralyzed from neck down, or even dead because it
yeah,
snapped his neck because of his
yeah,
age. Only,
yeah, yeah,
6 months. Yeah. So they said that what saved his life is the fact that I did not get in that closet with him.
yeah,
They said that that was probably the most heroic thing that a parent can do, is to leave their child alone somewhere when a disaster is fixing to happen.
oh yeah.
You know,
No, it was a gut call. I'm sure the Lord had His hand in it, guiding your thoughts
oh,
there,
absolutely,
and you made the right one. And so now you say so your son has this traumatic brain injury. He's basically because of the damage to the brain, the central nervous system on his right side is not functioning, right?
right.
Now, was it functioning at all, or was it just like very almost like a stroke kind of victim where,
Um, I did not see him for 32 days
mm,
after the storm. He was actually in the hospital less than I was. He got out 2 days prior to than I got.
okay,
So I don't know the main details of it. All I knew is that he was getting better every day.
good,
He had him in physical therapy. So by the time I saw him, he wouldn't use his right hand for nothing, even though he was right-handed. He was already
yeah,
showing that he was going to be right-handed. Like, you could throw a ball at his right side, it it would just hit him. He
yeah,
wouldn't move his right arm. And he had to wear a special brace on his leg, um, you know, for his keep his foot a certain position and stuff to walk some. But he would always get down and crawl. He wouldn't walk. Um, and so it's a lot of intense therapy afterwards and everything else. Um, but you know, the way he's turned out today, people won't know what couldn't know that it ever happened. They were told.
yeah, yeah, and that's yeah, I've seen him. I've actually worked with him and you training. We did special exercises to help with that. And what I notice is that lower body, the central nervous system seems to really be engaged. The right and left leg are pretty equal in strength, but the upper body, shoulder, arm, bicep, tricep, that whole back, all that stuff, chest, like any movement that just when I was evaluating him, any movement that he would do with two hands, like if he was pressing something, the left side was way out doing so. We instituted a lot of unilateral training, if you remember, right?
Yeah.
Starting with the weak side, only doing unilateral training. And you had told me an interesting story too about the doctors. They to help promote that. I want you to talk a little bit about that because to help promote it, they put a cast on his left side so that he had to use the right side, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's called constraint therapy. And they do it with all different ages of people. I mean, way severe, more severe than my son. But they cast um, the good arm that the brain's constantly telling it to use, and strap it to the body, and then do 8 hours of intense therapy with the other hand, the weak hand, to make the brain reconnect. Um, because some of the hardest things that I was going through as a parent was to see my son eat with his left hand and then scoop food right on top of his right hand, and him not even move his right
Yeah.
hand, as if his brain didn't acknowledge it was even there to push the food back on his plate. And to see that struggle as a parent was probably the hardest thing. And of course, I went through the phases of blaming myself. Um,
What could I
maybe I
have
should
done
have
differently? Maybe I should have done
completely.
it. Yeah, dude.
Maybe I shouldn't have been in the trailer. Maybe I should have went to my mother-in-law's when she told me that morning.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. I really beat myself up over.
It's a
Um,
never-ending cycle, dude. It's still years removed. I'm sure there's still times where you maybe just in your own thoughts, man, what if I had done this? How would things be different? And I have found that you have got to, when you're in these situations, the more you try to Monday morning quarterback it, the more you try to think about, should I have done this? Should I have done that? I think the more damage we do sometimes. You know, uh, there's that expression. Sometimes we just need to keep falling forward, and we do that. We fall forward so that we're not dwelling in the past behind us. We
right,
learn from the things that happened, right? We learn from our
right,
mistakes. But if we keep dwelling on it, it's gonna paralyze us, right? It'll
right,
paralyze the thought process. You'll end up with what's a paralysis by analysis, trying to overthink it.
right.
Sometimes you just got to learn and move forward. And one of the things I love about what has gone on here with you guys, the story. J- First of all, the grace of God, right? I do believe that
Yes.
the Lord had a hand in that. You can say no, he didn't, or yes, he did. I mean, everybody has their own opinion. I believe that to be the case, but um, the simple fact that now you have all of these things that you're having to deal with to overcome, right? There's physical therapy, relearning things. The case with your son, basically, I mean, just from my own studies, I mean, basically the brain is not triggering the central nervous system to fire that side. So he's dealing with all that stuff and overcoming it. And when I see where you guys are today, your attitude towards life, you're not bitter, you're not angry. Yeah, I mean, of course, we all wish that things maybe would have gone a different direction. Like, why me,
Mhm.
Lord? Why do I have to deal with this traumatic event? But you are not afraid to help others with that story and use your experiences to uplift and strengthen others, which is one of the things that I love about you, because it could go the other way, right? I mean, you
Oh,
can
yeah.
you can become bitter and angry, and you haven't done that. You're a fun guy. You're always there to help people, which is fantastic. Your son is doing great. He is an awesome musician. Top of his class. What's he play again? The sax. What's he play? Tenor,
Saxophone.
tenor sax, or
All of
both?
them. All of them.
All of them.
All of them.
So
Now he's
great
learning
music.
the berry.
There you go. So, he's intelligent. He is doing all these things. Oh, and by the way, crack shot, great hunter, right? Isn't he a member of the Thousand
Yes.
Yard Club?
Yep.
Right. So, I mean, you take all of those things that happened to him, all those things at such a young age. that he had to overcome that I'm sure put his physical development behind. He's getting that stuff corrected. He's only 15. I mean, he's got all this time to get that stuff squared away. So that is awesome to see, right? I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, in with that, what was the hardest part for you, Michael? What was the hardest part that the was it a mental part for you or a physical part that was harder? What was harder for you?
Um, I have a very unique attribute about myself that the hardest part for me was my son. I could care less at the moment when I was going through everything about me because I knew who I was. I've got a very strong personality. I don't stay down long. As soon as I'm able to work, I went to work. I do my part as a man and what I feel God wants men to do, and that's be a provider, be a protector, and everything else in their family. Mine was is I couldn't be the father I needed to be in the condition I was in.
Hmm.
So because I had such limitations, I was limited on how much I got to see my son until I was healed, and everything else. And that was my biggest struggle. Um,
Yeah.
and I guess you would say it probably more mental, but it wasn't mental in my own self. It was mental in not the questioning why I felt I was being punished not being able to see my son.
Yeah, well, think about it, dude. I mean, it's not. You're right. That is a mental struggle, and it is yours. That is your mental struggle because you're dealing with these things, right? You physically cannot do the things that you were able to do with your son before, and he can't physically do those things at that point. You guys are both almost starting from scratch, having to relearn things, deal with different aches and pains, deal with like the muscle tissue damage that you have in your leg. It still affects you to this day, right? And things you do just because those fibers and that scar tissue is just bound tight, right? So, I can't even imagine having to overcome that type of situation. I mean, that is a lot of work. This channel is the Work Hard People's podcast, and it's about people working hard. And it's not just physically, it's mentally as well. The mental work is oftentimes more important than the actual physical work, right? As we train our mind, as we work to overcome our weaknesses mentally, the physical will just take place. It will just happen. But that mental part is so hard, that struggle. And we all are on a different area of that. We all have different weaknesses. And ultimately, though, I think we all need to develop that ability to, number one, recognize that the world, the things in it are greater than we are, number one, right? The Lord, we are very small in this on this planet, number one. So we need to be able to, number one, be humble, accept help, because I know it's hard as hell for me, dude. Like, someone wants to help me, I'm a stubborn, like, no, I don't need it. I'm the one that's supposed to help. I don't need help,
Mhm.
right? But we need to accept it. We need to be humble because it will make us a better individual. And we need to be able to look ourselves in the mirror and address our weaknesses honestly, right? So often we can blame other people for our mistakes and our problems and our issues, whether they be job related, relationship related, right? It's it could be some of that, but it's us too, right? We're not perfect.
Right.
We have to be able to look ourselves in the mirror and overcome that. And I think that you work very hard on doing those things. And I think that's one of the reasons why you have been able to come out the other side of this with the attitude that you have, right? It's not perfect. We know that, but you still have a decent attitude. You look at it as that you were blessed.
Yeah.
You were blessed to get this
Absolutely.
extra time with your son. Not that it was a curse, but that it was a
Right.
blessing that you were preserved for whatever purpose that may be.
Right. Absolutely.
So what I got to ask you this question, man, because I would be honestly scared shitless. What do you do when tornadoes are coming out? They affect you?
Bring it
Because we
on.
get them here. Really? It's like
Bring it
whatever,
on.
man. Ride that
I
pony,
was
baby.
this is the most hilarious part is I was working for Steelcase out of Athens, JB Hunt,
Hmm.
and I had a tornado come behind me driving the truck across the interstate. About and let's see, that was 2011, so that would have been early spring of the next year. I mean, it was just, you could tell it was our tornado, a water spout tornado type tornado,
Yeah.
just by the way the wind was whipping the trailer around and stuff. I and I guess I'm a firm believer that God does not perform a miracle and then ball it up and throw it away in the corner.
Yeah.
He's going to protect that miracle.
I hear you.
And
Especially if he's got something for you to do, right?
exactly. And so I just, my son gets a little weirded out with storms,
Of course.
especially when there's a tornado warning. He
Hmm.
does, and it's more so the reaction of the other kids that irritates him and gets him to where he wants to leave school and stuff when this happens
Yeah.
because he lived through it. He understands the dangers of a tornado. The other kids are just happy they're out of class sitting in the hallway.
Yeah. There you
You know what I'm
go.
saying? And they don't understand the magnitude of the adults trying to keep them safe and why they're doing this. Um, but he does.
Do any of
And
us, dude? Don't we all think we're invincible until we're not? You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Especially as a
yeah,
kid,
I guess
right?
you're right.
You
Yeah,
think anything I could do anything, nothing's gonna scare me, man. Because they've never had that fear. I can tell you this. You know I've had a few incidents. I had a major wreck. I was face to face with a pistol, shot on my doorstep. I those things don't scare me. There's one incident, and if I had my son on here, he would tell you this to this day. That was one of the it's the scaredest he has ever heard my voice in his entire life. And it was because of a tornado. And I was driving down 65 headed to Montgomery, headed home. And somebody got on the storm was bad. It was bad, right? And somebody got on the radio and said, "We got touchdown" on the CV, right? And I'm like, where is it? And I am looking, right, like I'm right in the middle of this thing, and I immediately call my wife, right, and my son happened to be with her just to tell her I loved her because I didn't know where it was.
right.
And I'm going, and this I see this thing coming, and it's coming right in front of me, dude, like from uh okay, you know my house,
Yeah,
the back street, that back alley,
yes,
right
yeah,
there, and I'm driving right at it, and it's coming across the road, right, and I'm like, Kim, there it is, I love you, I just know I love you. And I'm like, oh shit, we got debris, like branches are flying now, and the thing, it crossed the highway, and then I lost it again. So I didn't know if it was turning back on me or what. Dude, the fear that was in my voice, I can't recreate it. Right? When
no,
Chris was like, Dad, I have never heard you that scared of anything. And I was like, yeah, me either, bro. Me either. So yeah, they scare me. They
yeah.
scare me.
I just, and I guess I'm more diligent. I've got a backup plan. I got plans. The way your mind wraps around this is that even though when it happened, I had three options, I chose the best one for us. Now my mind is so widely opened where I have a set of keys placed that is just for my car. I don't care less walk in my house,
Yeah.
but I can get to my car. I can get to my pickup truck. I get to a vehicle in mere seconds.
Yeah.
Um, I don't have a Viper alarm on none of
That's good, dude.
them.
That's good.
So you know they
Yeah, we
all
can't be
crank.
having that.
Right. You know they all crank when they want
Yeah.
when you want it to crank. Um, I'm not situated to really have a storm shelter, but there is a root cellar under my house
Yeah.
that I me and my son could get to if need be. It was
Hmm.
right out the back door through his bedroom.
Yeah.
Um, so all you can do is plan. You really can't, and you can't guess whether or not you'll ever be hit because you never know.
Nah,
There's no,
never.
I mean, I mean, a chance. I mean, heck, to be honest with you, after living through Hurricane Andrew and it coming through Homestead, Florida, um, and I was in Homestead, Florida when it hit. Um, to ever think in a million years I'd go through another natural disaster that I would lose everything and just look like Hiroshima. You know,
Yeah. Oh, I
you
got some
know,
pictures of the debris track and stuff, man, of your property and of an aerial photo of a mile and a half wide uh destruction path that goes as far as the eye can see.
yeah.
I'll
I
be
mean,
posting.
it's that. I mean, um, I've talked to some people after the tornado, and they said that you could actually from the space station, you could see the path through the telescope from the space station
Oh
that it
yeah.
took, and that usually molten was spared in tornadoes. Where we lived at is hardly ever spared. Where Tanner is at, it's hardly ever spared. But molten is usually spared because the town is up against a mountain,
Yeah.
and usually mountains force the tornado up into the sky. And the path it took, it actually went up and back down the mountain. It never lifted. It left a track on the mountain. Then they said
Yeah.
the only time it lifted is when it jumped the river. But then again, there's no proof because the track goes to the river and comes back out of the river on the other side.
That's funny, dude, because I we lived in Missouri for a while, and the town we lived in sat in like a valley, right? This
Right,
tight little valley. And we'd get tornadoes there all the time. It was in southern Missouri, but it was crazy. They'd be headed right for us, and they would literally like go up the one slope and like skip the town and then touch back down on the other side of the valley.
right, right. And
It's
that's
crazy.
typically
It just
it,
like
it
happened.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the typical nature of the beast is that when it hits a higher elevation, it forces it to jump. And
Yeah.
this did not jump. This one, it was solid. It was a solid
Just kept
wall of
coming and eating. I'm
destruction.
telling you, the pictures of this thing, dude. I can't. I look at that thing and it gives me chills, especially knowing that you were in it. Like looking at that thing, going, I can't even imagine what I would do. I mean, from a word to describe it, if you've ever watched the movie Twister, the very end
Yeah.
Twister that's coming through, that is literally what that thing looked like.
The
I
only
mean,
thing is that it was during the day instead of the night.
yeah,
So
that
you
thing.
saw all of it.
Yeah, it was, jeez. Yeah, absolutely insane looking at that thing. But I'm not
Well,
talking, I'm talking about the one in the daytime at the very end of the movie.
oh,
It's
okay.
huge,
Yeah.
right? Like that's literally what the pictures look like. It is absolutely crazy. Oh, and I'm sure Michael Californians probably want you to stay out of their state because they do not need a 10.0 earthquake anytime soon.
Right.
And
That
the
or
way you're dragging natural disasters
natural
with you,
disasters with
yeah.
me. Yeah.
Come on, bro.
Blizzards.
What'd you
Yeah, I'm
tell me
not
once?
going.
You told me once if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have any.
Right. Yeah, I'm not going to anywhere where there's blizzards. I'm not going anywhere
Yeah,
where there's volcanoes,
you're staying right
earthquakes,
here.
mudslides. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with disasters.
That's awesome, dude. Well, hey, Michael, I want to thank you for coming on here and sharing such a personal story. I do believe that this information can really help people. I think that they can learn from you that hey, we can survive these tragedies. We can deal with trauma and we can keep moving on and be good people. And we don't have to let
Yeah.
it make us bitter, right? I
Right.
thank you a lot for spending a little bit of time with me today and going over that. I'm grateful that you're my friend. I'm grateful that the Lord has blessed you so that I've had the opportunity to get to know you and your son. You guys are solid people, and with that, people, you get out there and you work hard, peoples, and remember, don't forget to smile.
They get to smile.
Thanks so much for watching or listening. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can find us on Facebook at Work Hard Peoples LLC or Instagram at Work Hard Peoples LLC. You can also find us on our website at workhardpeoples.com. Have a great day or night. Don't forget to smile.